to Simple Life Truth series. I've titled today's video The Rebirth, and simply because it tells the story of my rebirth, but also coincidentally the rebirth of our channel, Simple Life Truth series. It's good to be here after a long time out, and as you would imagine, a lot has happened since the last time we engaged on this channel. But I'm happy to be back here, and I promise that I won't go silent on you again for this long. We do have a ministry and a purpose to fulfill, and you're a very big part of that ministry. But like everyone else, I've had my own struggles, and I actually still do. But what we go through is not as important as how we emerge from those experiences or what we do during that struggle. Which is why I'll be sharing with you some of my own struggles, just so that you will understand that 2 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 13 is very real. This for me is the essence of our channel, Simple Life Truth series. As a way of a backstory, when I was born, my dad had 3 revelational messages about me. And of course, this he told me many years after. Number 1 of that message was that I was not his child, but the Lord's, and that they were just guardians. Number 2 was that they shouldn't speak anything negative about me. And number 3 was in form of a trance, and in this trance there was a platform, and I was on that platform, and then light came and shone on that platform. Then immediately thick darkness came and overshadowed the light. And light came back and overshadowed the darkness. And then for the 3rd time, darkness came and overshadowed the light. And then finally, light came, shined, and shined forever. These messages have actually proven true in my life, particularly the 3rd message. I have had experiences of light and as well as darkness over these 3 decades of my life. I have seen inconsistencies that actually trouble me, and many of you can relate to some of these my experiences. Friends, just like me, many of you have been marked by God for a purpose and an assignment, but your experiences today may not suggest that you were chosen. But therein lies the trick of the devil, because the truth remains that the only obstacle to you truly fulfilling your potential is not the devil, right? It's not your parents, it's not the people in the village, it's not the witches, or it's not anything you can actually imagine. No, it is actually, the only obstacle is actually you. The devil doesn't want you to know this. So what does he do? He attacks or inflicts bodily harm or emotional harm, all because he's trying to target your psyche to cause psychological harm. Because he knows that he has you thinking that all these things that are befalling you are because you're not good enough, or because you're not loved by God. Then he knows that you would give up the battle and he would win the fight. And that's why Proverbs chapter 23 verse 7a says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. The devil is after your mind, he's after your thought, he's after your heart, because it determines the course of your life. And that's Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23. He attacked me, he did attack me too, and like I said, he attacked me bodily, emotionally, and he tried to get to my psyche, and I'll share with you some part of that story. One of the first ways the devil tried to attack me was to cause bodily harm. I remember a few days after my birth, I was rushed to the hospital, and I was diagnosed with severe jaundice. My dad was told, when he was told, he rushed to the hospital. And while I was put under the UV light, being treated, my dad came and he prayed. And as God will have it, during the time of the examination that night, miraculously, I was healed and I was discharged. But as if that was not enough, when I was 4 years old, I remember that day in church in service, I had danced a lot, danced as a small young baby. And after that series of praise, I was immediately in a pool of blood, and quickly I was rushed to the hospital, and I was diagnosed with what we call valvulox. It was the first time my parents had had anything like that, and I was told that it was a very rare occurrence. But the simple way to understand valvulox is that your long and short intestine are twisted together, and then it caused an obstruction, and because of that, because I was bleeding and I was in a pool of blood, and my dad was asked to sign a consent form, and quickly I had to go to the theater. And as a 4-year-old child going into the theater for such a complicated situation like this, he had to sign that. Obviously, if anything happens, the hospital was going to be indemnified. But I went through that surgery, and again, as God will have it, I came out alive 1 week after I was discharged. You know, the interesting thing was that 3 months after the surgery, my dad saw the doctor and, you know, introduced himself and said, I was the father of the boy that you had the surgery on. And the doctor said to him, is he still alive? My father laughed and said, if he was not alive, I wouldn't come to say thank you. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying this because the devil had always tried to terminate my life very early. Just like my experiences. Some of you may be going through life-threatening experiences, or may actually still be going through it. But God's love is very much assured. And just know one thing, that you're destined to win. I have a friend who today is struggling with sickle cell, and she's been dealing with pains for years. She cannot lead a normal life like you and I. And every day, she's always living with the fear of the worst. As difficult as her situation is, the devil tries to make her think she deserves it, but that God has abandoned her. And this is where the devil tries to cause that psychological harm because of the potent power of your thoughts. And now when he doesn't succeed in trying to affect your psychology by virtue of causing bodily harm, the next thing he tries is emotional harm. Most times, this is most painful and long-lasting because this actually affects your emotion. He attacked mine too. When I was a kid, I suffered an emotional harm in the sense that I was sexually abused by a very close relative. And I didn't understand why I had to go through that. I didn't think that I deserved it. But anybody who have experienced that do deserve it. And it was something that I had to live with. And the aftermath of that very painful experience. I know that part of the things I had to struggle with was masturbation, was pornography, and for a moment it affected how I thought about myself. And just maybe I deserved it, I don't know. But being in that place where I thought low of myself, where I thought deserving of the experience I went through, I saw how it affected the trajectory of my life. And I saw how it affected how I was, my life was turning out to be. And that's the ultimate plan of the devil. To some of you, it may be what I've gone through, or it may just be that you're dealing with some financial struggles, or it may be that your career is not going a certain way. All of these things, all of these different experiences you're dealing with is all trying to affect your emotions, because if your emotions are all over the place, then it affects your thoughts and your mind and your thinking. And that's why Josmea said that indeed the battleground is in the mind. Little wonder why God admonished us that it is important to think about these things. Philippians chapter 4 verse 8, New Living Translation, I'll read it. It says, now dear brothers and sisters, one final thing, Paul talking to the Philippians church. Fix your thoughts on what is true, what is honorable, what is right, what is pure, lovely, and admirable. Think about these things because they are excellent and they are worthy of praise. What the Bible is simply telling us is, if your struggles are not right, if they are not true, if they're not pure, if they're not honorable, those are not the things to think about. Regardless, so what you go through are the facts. God is saying, don't think about it, because He knows that the direction of your thoughts will shape the direction of your life. And that is the essence of why SLTS is here. Like never before, someone like me, or like my friend who is a sickle cell survivor, or any of you who are going through some struggle here and now, like never before, you want to be reminded of God's love. You want to know that regardless of what you're going through, God indeed loves you. And what we can guarantee you on this platform is to remind you of God's love. And on the strength of that love is the hope, because Christ in us, the hope of glory. That is our truth. That is our message. And that's what we will communicate to you. That's the kind of support system that we'll provide to you. That regardless of what you're going through, because when you go through these challenges, you need the right support system your way. And you can count on SLTS to be that support system where we will talk to you, remind you that what you're going through, there is hope. But that hope comes from the love that God has for you, which is assured, which is unquestionable. And in that is our truth. And we'll continue to remind you of that truth. Going forward, there are a lot of things we will talk about. We'll talk about, like I said, God's love. We'll talk about the real life issues that we're dealing with. We'll talk about things that that as individuals, even whether your family, your career, your business, your personal life, whatever it is, we'll talk about those things. And we'll give you our perspective that is drawn out of God's Word, which is the foundation of everything we'll talk about, just to remind you that regardless of whatever it is, this is God's promise for you, and that is the hope, and that's why we live daily, to be reminded that regardless of everything, there is hope. Next week, stay safe in truth, because the truth will set you free. This is your host, dan-okayi. See you next week.